Spring, 1944, Europe is burning, the Allies are preparing for invasion, and German intelligence watches every move. The war is not only fought with bullets, but with deception, psychology, and imagination. And then the Americans come up with an idea so crazy it sounds like fiction to create an army that doesn't exist. They called it the Ghost Army. It wasn't made of soldiers, but of artists, painters, sound engineers, and designers. Their weapons weren't guns, but loudspeakers, paint, and air. Their mission, to convince the Germans that a massive American force stood ready, when in reality, it was barely 1,000 men, officially known as the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops. The unit recruited artists from New York's art schools and ad agencies. Among them were future icons like Bill Blass, who became a fashion legend, and Ellsworth Kelly, a modern art pioneer. But during the war, they weren't creating art. They were crafting illusions. Illusions that could save lives. The Ghost Army used 3 main tricks. First, visual deception. Huge inflatable Sherman tanks, jeeps, and artillery pieces that looked real from the sky. They were deployed overnight, so at dawn German scouts saw entire divisions ready to move. Second, sound. Engineers recorded real battlefield noises, engines, gunfire, soldiers shouting, and played them through massive speakers that carried for miles. The enemy heard an advancing army that didn't exist. Third, fake radio traffic. Operators broadcasted scripted conversations that German intelligence could intercept. Every detail, tone, timing, jargon, was authentic enough to fool even seasoned spies. After D-Day, the Ghost Army played a key role in misleading the Germans about where General Patton's forces would attack. Hundreds of fake tanks, sound trucks, and radio chatter drew attention away from the real offensive, saving countless lives. Later, at the Rhine River, the unit staged another grand illusion, convincing the Germans that 2 divisions were preparing to cross at one location, while the real attack struck somewhere else entirely. It was a battle won by artists, not soldiers. After the war, their work was classified. For over 50 years, the world had no idea they existed. Only in the 1990s were their missions declassified, and in 2022, Congress finally awarded them the Congressional Gold Medal for their creativity and bravery. Today, their story reminds us that war is not only about strength and violence, but also about imagination, ingenuity, and courage to think differently. Because sometimes, to win a war, you only need your enemy to believe in something that isn't there. The missions of the Ghost Army were far from safe. They operated right on the front lines, sometimes only a few kilometers from German forces. Most of them had no combat experience. They held brushes and cameras, not rifles. Yet every day they risked their lives, because if the Germans discovered the deception, they would have been executed as spies, not soldiers. During one operation in the Ardennes, the Ghost Army was deploying inflatable tanks when German artillery suddenly opened fire. Several men were wounded. Later, they found bullet holes in the rubber tanks, proof that the illusion had worked a little too well. Their commanders often said, "Our mission is not to kill. Our mission is to deceive." This was a war fought by people who refused to fight in the usual way, and perhaps that's why they were so effective. After the war, many Ghost Army veterans returned to civilian life and stayed silent. They couldn't talk about their work. It was still classified. Only decades later did their families discover that their quiet, artistic relatives had once been part of a secret unit that saved thousands of lives through illusion. In military archives, researchers found notebooks filled with sketches and letters from the front. They showed the strange duality of their world, art and war side by side. mud and destruction on one page, color and composition on the next. It was as if they tried to bring a bit of beauty into the ugliest place on earth. Today, museums across the United States host exhibitions about the Ghost Army, displaying their creativity and courage. They remind us that imagination can save more lives than a gun ever could. When the last surviving veterans received the Congressional Gold Medal in 2022, one of them said quietly, "I thought the world would forget us. But maybe it's right that people remember. Because sometimes artists can help win a war." The story of the Ghost Army is more than history. It's a timeless lesson that even in war, the human mind can find ways to fight without hate, to resist with creativity, and to turn illusion into a force for life.